And welcome back to the show. Communities United for Police Reform is an unprecedented campaign to end discriminating policing practices in New York. Now, the campaign brings together a movement of community leaders, as well as lawyers, researchers, and activists who are actually working for change. The partners in this campaign come from all 5 boroughs of the city, from all walks of life, and represent most of those unfairly targeted by the NYPD. Fierce is an organization that is building the leadership and power of the LGBTQ youth of color in New York City. And they're also dedicated to cultivating the next generation of social justice movement leaders who are dedicated to ending all forms of oppression. And joining us now to share a little bit more is the executive director of Fierce, Mustafa Sullivan. And I'm Mustafa, good to have you back here.
Nice to be back. Thank you.
Yeah. And so talking about this really talking about the NYPD, we continue to hear stories of people challenging the NYPD, aggressive policing, broken windows policing. From your perspective, where we are right now, how would you rate how the relationship is between NYPD and community?
Well, I think there's a couple important things to be clear about. One is the violence continues, right? They just killed someone in the Bronx, Mike Rosado, just a few weeks ago. And we know that the pattern of violent behavior that goes unpunished, that the mayor and the police commissioner continue to allow killer cops to be on the payroll. We know that, in spite of, a federal monitor ruling in 2013 that NYPD stop and frisk policy was racist. We know that, and continues to be racist. We know that that policy continues, even though the police department claims that it's not continuing. And we know that they never defunded the police. Last year, there was a promise by the mayor and some elected officials to defund the police and take $1 billion out of the police budget. We know it was a bunch of smoke and mirrors, and that never happened. And they're continuing to, underfund our communities and overfund police, underfund housing and all the different issues, and continue to fund the police.
So where do you go from here? Obviously, you're training, as I said, the intro, a new group of leaders to really stand up and to be vigilant, and not just to be vigilant, but to be really voices of advocacy when it comes to these issues. Talk to us about the message that you want them to carry out.
Well, I think the first thing is really thinking about what are the root causes of violence in our communities and in our neighborhoods, and where do we see things like schools, things like mental health support, things like our hospitals, things like the COVID care that we're supposed to be receiving. All of these things we know are underfunded and not supporting our communities, supporting Black and Brown communities. And then we see bloated police budgets. So I would say really people should continue to look at the money. People in our communities also should know their rights, know that you have the right to document police violence if it's happening in your neighborhood, and that you have the right to be protected from unjust search and seizure by the police, and that they're supposed to be, according to the Right to Know Act, they're supposed to be giving out business cards and claim if anytime they stop you, they're supposed to notify you who they actually are. And we know throughout the city that continues to be a problem, that police are not identifying themselves and violating the rights of our community. But we know our rights, and we continue as an organization to educate our community about our rights and about the real need in our communities to document police violence and police interactions all over the city.
What's the process, if you will, for helping young people to really know their rights? Because so many times we see, and we can watch social media, of course, and you can see incidents where adults actually step in and say, no, that's not right in terms of how you're handling a minor. But what's being done on the ground level to really help educate minors and those youth as to what their rights are, particularly when it comes to a police interaction? Because let's be honest, many times when a youth has an interaction with a police officer, it's pretty much from a subservient way, and they're not asserting their rights, but they do have rights.
It's about training. It's about getting the information out there. On our website, changethenypd.org, groups or individuals can download Know Your Rights packets. And also on there, you can look up the different community organizations. We're made up of 200 community organizations. My organization, for example, Fierce, is located in Fordham in the Bronx, and we do know your rights trainings. And we are continually doing outreach in the community. So letting people know where we are, letting people know that we can do know your rights trainings in the blog, in the community, in our office, virtually, because it's all about information. A lot of people don't have the right information about how to deal with police interactions. And we see it as one of our primary goals, and has always been since we've been in existence since 2012, to continually fight and get out the message to people about their rights and knowing how to protect themselves and how to protect each other.
What's the relationship been like with you and your organization when it comes to conversations with law enforcement and the police in particular? We know that there are police community relations in each precinct, but talk to us about what that relationship has been like for you, having these conversations and really being able to address these issues.
Well, I think the main thing is, we're a community organization that works with people all over the city and collecting information, stories, real direct experience, including, many families that we work with who have lost family members, lost people in their families due to police violence. And so part of what we continue to message is that those cops who killed people in these families need to be held accountable, and and the families that have lost people need to be compensated, need to be honored, and need to be dignified by the city and by our mayor. And we know that the mayor has not been doing that, right? We put in really clear changes that 16 families and over 70 organizations want to the NYPD discipline matrix, and we haven't seen those changes being made to the discipline of police officers. And we know that the mayor, even though they're on their way out, they still have time to change that matrix to honor the families and fire the killer police officers that we know are still collecting checks. And we're talking about families who've been waiting years and years. We're talking about Antonia Williams' family, who's been waiting 2 years. We're talking about the family of Kawasaki Trawick, whose family has not gotten justice. And now we see Mike Rosado in the Bronx. So that's really what we need from the police department, and that's not what we're getting, nor are we getting that from the mayor's office. And we're not seeing a lot of pressure or enough pressure being put by the city council on the police department for these incidences.
Yeah, we talked about what's not working. From your perspective, what is working?
I think the dialogues in communities. A lot of people are really thinking creatively. What does it look like if we're gonna deal with the mental health crisis in our neighborhoods, for example? A lot of people are talking about, well, what should we be doing in our communities to support mental health, to support wellness, to help deal with crisis intervention, right? We know that this pandemic has been hard for people economically. So I'm proud to say we're one of the groups, along with many groups across the city, that are providing direct mutual aid and providing food to people and making sure that people are supported. And so we believe that in violent interactions, in crisis intervention or crisis interactions in homes, that our communities can protect ourselves. And we just need to be more creative and challenge our elected officials and challenge the city to give us resources to support these alternatives to police.
Is there anything working that you see in the area of police that really between community and police, or the police are doing that are really that you can really cite as a positive?
Well, the only thing I can say is that the dialogues are continuing, and that there is, at the very least, people who are opening up this conversation about what the police budgets are looking like. And I'm not saying that's coming from police, but I think it's coming from community groups who continue to put pressure, and more people are asking the right questions, and more people are having the right dialogues about what safety looks like without police.
Yeah.
So,
Are you
I don't know
optimistic?
if that's about police, but
Uh, Are you optimistic, given the fact that there is a possibility and it's a high probability that Eric Adams may be the next mayor of the city of New York? And given the fact that he does have a police background working as a police officer, are you optimistic that there will be at least an open ear and possibly the potential for change?
My optimism is that De Blasio will be out. That's really as far as it goes for me. I think, I've been a part of some organizations that have started to have conversations with the potential incoming mayor. I don't know what that means. Conversation is conversation, and then when someone gets in office, it can be, as we know, a whole other deal. And so I like to wait and see until the change actually happens and that we're actually in the process of these negotiations to even know, or these conversations to even know what change looks like. I've been an organizer for 20 years, so it's really hard for me to be optimistic politically because I've seen the rug get pulled out of communities for so often, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, before we go, give me an opportunity to share a little bit, or give you an opportunity to share a little bit about how people can get connected to the organization and the work that you're doing.
I would say, again, check changenypd.org, and pay attention over the next few weeks. Our collective organizations are going to be doing some research. They're going to be talking to neighborhoods and talking to communities about police violence, about defund the police, and about alternatives. And we want to hear people's voice. We want to engage people in this conversation. We'll be in the Bronx and in the 5 boroughs during the month of October and November, talking to people about what are the solutions, what are the key community solutions to police that we want to see, what are the interactions people have had, and what do people really think about defund the police and what it is that we need in our neighborhoods as priorities. And so I would say pay attention and look out for us to be in your neighborhood, like I said, October and November, to have these conversations.
Well, Mustafa, great having you here with us on the show. Certainly continue to let us know how things are working out. We'll look forward to seeing you possibly in the new year with some new initiatives, and talk to us about how things are going with the new administration. Mustafa, great to have you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. I appreciate
All
you.
right. Mustafa Sullivan, our guest here on the Social Justice Forum.